Tonight, the White House says the stimulus has created or saved more than 600,000 jobs and counting. We're counting too. Are those jobs for real? I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, supply of the H1N1 vaccine is starting to catch up with demand. But the number of children dying from the flu continues to climb, taking the biggest weekly jump yet. And the American spirit, an amazing comeback from a park bench to the Broadway stage.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening, everyone. It's been 8 months since President Obama signed the $787 billion stimulus bill with the promise it would create or save 3 million jobs. Today, the White House put out a report card claiming stimulus spending has so far directly created or saved 640,329 jobs. Chip Reid is at the White House tonight. And Chip, the administration is claiming success on the jobs front, but critics are saying not so fast.
That's right, Katie. Critics are saying, how can anybody claim success when unemployment is almost 10%? But today, Vice President Joe Biden said without the stimulus, it would be even higher.
And hundreds of thousands of men and women are receiving a paycheck now that they would not have otherwise been receiving at this moment.
Early counts of stimulus jobs have been filled with hundreds of errors. Even the vice president admits in a government program this big and complicated, there's no such thing as perfection.
We know that it's not 100% accurate.
But he says this time it's close. Of the 640,000 jobs allegedly saved or created, a majority, 325,000, are in education, 80,000 in construction. For companies that get stimulus money, it's a double-edged sword. American Infrastructure Company in Maryland used it to rehire 60 laid-off employees. But the company is deeply worried about life after the stimulus.
A lot of the jobs that were a part of the stimulus were one-term and one-year jobs, so it was one season of work.
That could mean more layoffs if the economy hasn't recovered. Economist Mark Zandi says the fact that the stimulus is temporary could turn it from a blessing to a curse, as stimulus spending skyrockets, then plummets, throwing cold water on the economy.
The stimulus is very positive, adding a lot to growth. That's what's happening right now. By this time next year, it turns into a drag.
On Capitol Hill, outraged Republicans say if you get out your calculators, you'll be angry too. Those 640,000 jobs, the White House says it took $160 billion to pay for them. That comes to about $250,000 a job. The White House says Republicans are engaging in calculator abuse, insisting that by the end of next year, the amount per job will be $92,000, which Republicans say is still way too high. Some government watchdogs say forget the calculators. Getting an accurate job count is impossible.
It leads to the sense that there's something precise about this. And the bottom line is we have no idea how many jobs would have been created without the stimulus.
The White House insists the stimulus is on track, just as the president predicted, to create more than 3 million jobs by the end of next year. Critics say that is nothing more than wishful thinking. Katie? Chip
Reid reporting from the White House tonight. Chip, thank you. So where are all the jobs the White House is talking about? California got $18.5 billion in stimulus money, creating more than 110,000 jobs. Illinois got nearly $6.5 billion and turned that into more than 24,000 jobs. So we have two reports tonight, beginning with Ben Tracy in California.
At Fairfax High School in Los Angeles, classrooms and budgets are tight, despite the influx of stimulus dollars. California received $7 billion for education. The government says that created or saved 62,000 jobs. But the teachers union says California also made $6 billion in cuts to education, resulting in 20,000 jobs lost. Today, California's governor said that number could have been much worse.
These teachers would have been gone if it wouldn't have been for the federal stimulus money. I just want to make sure you understand that.
Fairfax lost 8 teachers. They each taught about 175 students, who are now packed in with the rest.
Why are you sitting on top of a file cabinet?
Because there's no seats.
On the day we visited, 42 kids were piled into a room built for 30.
What does it mean for your relationship with the teacher and your ability to learn?
You don't have that one-on-one with the teacher. If you have a question, you probably have to wait.
In one room, 3 students shared the teacher's desk.
I think every student here knows that there's something going on when you have 3 students or 4 students sitting at the teacher's desk.
A shortage of teachers is not just a problem here in California. More than half of the 160 superintendents who responded to a nationwide survey said they had to cut teachers in core subjects despite getting federal stimulus funds. And more than 80% had to cut librarians, school nurses, and custodians.
The stimulus money has made the layoffs less extreme, but the stimulus money won't last forever.
Nationwide, $100 billion in stimulus was allotted for education, but 3/4 of that has already been awarded, and it will all run out by 2011.
Honestly, I shudder to think what that situation would be like.
Without stimulus dollars, the principal at Fairfax is not sure he can even keep the supply cabinet full.
You know, the basic supplies, pens, pencils, inks for the copiers.
Meanwhile, Ricardo Daniels is just trying to finish his last year of high school.
Now I have to come to school every single day and do the best that I possibly can to become successful with what's handed to me.
But what he's been handed is a school still in need of a handout. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
This is Dean Reynolds in Chicago. At the Ballet Vietnamese bakery, owner Tim Nguyen says the stimulus money sustained his business, saved his workers, and found jobs for others.
I was able to keep my employees and create more positions.
Did you add positions?
In fact, I did add a couple positions here.
He received a $270,000 loan from the Small Business Administration.
And without that money, what would you have done?
Without that money, yes, obviously I'm going to have to cut back employees, cut back hours.
With the money, he was able to proceed with plans to move to a new location next door, which in turn created construction jobs in advance of the January opening.
How many people had jobs building this new place?
I would say about 30.
30 people?
30 people.
7 miles away, Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner toured a job training center that received $200,000 in stimulus, a center that helped Francisco Chavez land a job after 18 months without one.
Going through the training made me more marketable. It updated my skills. It enhanced them.
Don Schultz's construction firm did $8 million in business on 4 shovel-ready projects with stimulus money Illinois received from the Transportation Department. While that meant jobs for 30 workers, those jobs end next month. And Schultz worries about what happens next for his business.
We got to go out and get some more work, and there's going to be less work because we don't have those stimulus jobs to bid on.
Which could bring his business to a grinding halt. Dean Reynolds, CBS News, Chicago.
In other news about the economy, one day after the government reported the economy is in fact growing again, there was a big sell-off today on Wall Street. Investors worried that the recovery won't last. The Dow plunged nearly 250 points, or 2.5%. Anthony Mason is here. And Anthony, what happened today?
It may have just been a Halloween scare, Katie. I'm not sure. But actually, I think the markets are really still trying to figure out just where the economy is headed. And there was another mood swing today. Yesterday, we had the first positive GDP growth in more than a year. Today, we had the worst consumer spending numbers since last December. And that's what sparked the 250-point sell-off. After cash for clunkers drove a surge in consumer spending in August, it dropped sharply in September. And the outlook for the holiday season isn't promising either. A Consumer Reports survey out this week found that 65% of Americans plan to cut back on overall holiday spending. Investors fear that if Americans are worried about their jobs and put their wallets away, we can't have a sustainable recovery. Katie.
And Anthony, it seems like the Dow is so volatile. You and I were talking last night about it going up following those positive GDP numbers. And last week it went above 10,000 and now it's below again. It's hard to follow it all.
It's true. But you got to remember, back in March, we were down at 6,500. Even with the sell-off today, we're up almost 50% since then. And for October, which is normally a really volatile month, the Dow ended up dead even.
All right, so keep it in perspective, I guess. Anthony Mason, thanks, Anthony. Now turning to the war in Afghanistan, President Obama held another strategy meeting today, this time with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. A decision on whether to send more troops is still days, perhaps weeks away. And the military now acknowledges that just getting more troops to Afghanistan would take a long time. From the Pentagon, here's David Martin.
General Stanley McChrystal, the top commander in Afghanistan, has told the Pentagon it would take more than a year to get all the troops he's asking for on the ground and in the fight against the Taliban. The 1st Brigade could not arrive until January of 2010. And after that, the need to build facilities to house more troops would limit him to just one additional brigade every 3 months. If the president were to grant McChrystal's full request of 40,000 troops, it would be 2011 before they all got there. That's bad news for the war, since McChrystal has warned it could be lost in the next 12 months. But it also means the president has plenty of time to decide whether to give McChrystal all the troops he wants. The White House is not happy with the way senior military leaders, beginning with Joint Chiefs Chairman Mullen, have handled the debate over Afghan strategy, boxing the president in with their public statements. 2 days after the president held his first meeting on Afghanistan, Mullen was telling Congress he agreed with McChrystal.
Having heard his views and having great confidence in his leadership, a properly resourced counterinsurgency probably means more forces.
Even before that, General Petraeus, the overall commander for the region, gave an interview in which he strongly backed McChrystal's assessment. As for McChrystal, he publicly dismissed a much more limited strategy favored by Vice President Biden.
A strategy that does not leave Afghanistan in a stable position is probably a short-sighted strategy.
The Afghan decision is the president's first moment of truth as commander-in-chief. It's also shaping up as a watershed in his relations with senior military leaders. David Martin, CBS News, The Pentagon.
Off the California coast tonight, the search continues for 7 Coast Guard members and 2 Marines involved in a midair collision. It happened last night at dusk, about 60 miles from San Diego near San Clemente Island. A Coast Guard C-130 airplane was looking for a missing boater when it collided with a Marine Cobra helicopter on a training mission. The cause of the collision is not known. The Navy and Coast Guard are searching 700 square miles of the Pacific for any survivors. And coming up next here on the CBS Evening News, manning the hotlines to try to cure an epidemic of confusion over the H1N1 flu. The White House said today President Obama is frustrated by the delays in getting the H1N1 flu vaccine to the people who need it most, and that includes children. In its latest report today, the CDC said 114 have died from the virus. That's up 19 since last week, the biggest one-week increase yet. H1N1 is now widespread in nearly every state, and Dr. John LaPook tells us so is the confusion.
For pregnant women,
the threat of this year's flu season is very real.
Despite the government's mass PR campaign involving celebrities.
Hi, this is Mark Anthony. You've probably heard a lot about influenza and the H1N1 virus.
And cartoon characters.
Hey, kids, we're ready to roll. Stopping that virus, that's our goal.
H1N1 continues to create mass frustration.
I'm glad that the vaccine is available, but this is a little ridiculous. It's crazy.
The state of New Jersey has set up 2 hotlines.
As of right now, that is an open clinic. You do not need a reservation.
One for the public.
We expect to reach 10,000 calls today since October 6th. We're open from 9 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and actually this weekend we're going to begin to go to a 7-day operation, 9 to 5.
And this one for healthcare providers.
They got their vaccines, but they didn't get the supply kits, so they're actually short on syringes.
You know, they certainly have voiced frustrations with the ordering process and the availability of the vaccine.
Lines may be long and supplies short, but today the CDC reported progress. There are now almost 27 million H1N1 vaccine doses available. That's up over 10 million from just a week ago.
In the event that your local health departments or your providers do run out of the vaccine, again, please be patient that we do anticipate more vaccine coming along.
Trick or treat.
And for parents worried about their children bringing home the virus along with their Halloween candy,
Trick or treat. Thank you.
the CDC offered this advice.
Have fun, stay safe, and yes, if your kid is sick, please keep them home.
In addition to the vaccine, there's also been a shortage of liquid Tamiflu for treating children. So today the CDC said it's releasing the rest of its stockpiles of this medication. Katie?
All right, Dr. John LaPook. John, thank you. Meanwhile, daylight saving time, yes, no S, comes to an end this weekend. Benjamin Franklin came up with the idea of fiddling with the clock back in the 18th century to add more light to the day and save candles. But it wasn't until World War I that the U.S. government first adopted it to conserve fuel. And 2 years ago, Congress extended daylight time to run until the first Sunday of November. So it now includes Halloween, giving children an extra hour of daylight to trick or treat. But at 2 a.m. Sunday, we fall back to standard time. So don't forget to set your clocks back 1 hour. And we'll be right back. Well, it was one of Washington's best-kept secrets how many members of the House are being investigated by the Ethics Committee. But as Cheryl Atkinson reports, the word got out by accident.
An embarrassing breach from one of the most secretive committees on Capitol Hill. A House ethics staffer posted a confidential report where the public could access it.
There was a cyber hacking incident of a confidential document.
Revealed in the document, names of more than 24 lawmakers who, at the time of the report in July, were under some sort of ethics review. That includes 2 congressmen who've been the subject of CBS News investigations. Charles Rangel.
I'm unable to answer any questions.
He's being looked at for a half-dozen alleged lapses, including tax problems. And John Murtha.
That's the Constitution of the United States.
Murtha is among 7 lawmakers under review for allegedly trading earmarks for campaign contributions. The confidential document has been removed from public view, but the Washington Post obtained a copy.
Many of the cases, if you will, are sort of known, or the broad outlines are known, but the specific status with the Ethics Committee is brand new.
Other names on the list, Jane Harman, who allegedly tried to trade favors to get a leadership position in the House. Alan Mullihan for allegedly using his office for personal profit. Maxine Waters, whose husband owns stock in a bank she allegedly helped to get bailout funds. And Laura Richardson, who may have filed improper financial disclosures. Murtha, Visklosky, Young, and Moran had no comment. The others have denied wrongdoing. Democrats say the lengthy list shows they're serious about draining the swamp in Washington. But ethics watchdog Melody Sloan says don't get too excited.
While today we may have learned that a lot of members are under investigation, what usually happens is nothing.
Ethics officials point out that all of the members named could eventually be cleared of wrongdoing. No such delayed judgment for the staffer who posted the document. That person has been fired. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Washington.
The White House today put out a partial list of people who have visited there since President Obama took office in January. And at first it looked like there was a big story because under the A's is William Ayers. That's the name of a former radical fugitive. During the campaign, Mr. Obama was accused of palling around with him. And under the W's, Jeremiah Wright, the name of the president's controversial former pastor. But the administration says it wasn't that Ayers or that Wright who visited the White House. It was men who happened to have the same names. Coming up next, her 40-block journey from the dark streets to the bright lights of Broadway. We end the week with a Broadway revival. 2 of them, actually, a play and a life. Michelle Miller now with this edition of The American Spirit.
Back in the day, Terry White belted it out with the best of them.
It's a pity you can't sing, Terry.
Holding her own with Liza Minnelli, she was in Barnum, which earned a Tony nod, and starred in some of Broadway's biggest hits. But over time, she got fewer roles, and the woman who once made her home on the Great White Way found herself without one.
This was home. Yes, it was, for a few months. In fact, right over by the statue over there is where my hang was.
Your park bench.
Yes, my bench, yes.
Homeless by day, at night, Terry White tried to make ends meet as a regular on the New York nightclub scene. But even that dried up. She was desperate, but had nowhere to go.
Sometimes I would like sing in the park just to get it out of my system.
We met right over here. It was
then an old friend came back into her life.
This street can get pretty desolate at night. And I saw her walking down the street, and she noticed me in the car and came up to me.
Officer David Taylor knew Terry from her nightclub days and knew something was wrong.
She just looked very frightened and really, really down, depressed, and I was concerned for her.
One phone call, and her life changed.
Left, and then the next thing I know, you found someone I could stay at and rest and not be out here freezing.
Her world warmed up again.
You're a star.
No,
well, you're
no,
a star.
You're the star.
No, you're the star.
I'm going back to patrol tonight. You're going to be on the stage.
In just 1 year, Terry's back on stage, opening to rave reviews in the Broadway musical Finian's Rainbow. She's also back at the St. James Theater, where 30 years ago she made her Broadway debut.
She can do it, you can do it.
Her castmates say if that's not irony, think about the theme of this 40s revival.
The show's about hope and, like you said, finding your rainbow.
But the landlord says your rent ain't paid, no necessity.
Even Terry believes her role and the songs she sings were written just for her.
You're going to survive. You'll find a way, or something will find the way for you. And that's how I've kept my strength.
It's your theme song.
It is my theme song.
Who says life doesn't imitate art? Michelle Miller, CBS News, New York.
How great is that? And if you know someone who exemplifies the American spirit, go to cbsnews.com and please let us know. That is the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric in New York. Thanks for watching this week. I'll see you again on Monday. Until then, have a safe and happy Halloween. Good night.